Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the One Day Virtual Stage. I'm Matthew, and I will be your host today. Abram is off on hiatus this week as he's taking a leadership seminar. So it'll just be me with you today and on Thursday. Um, it's been a pretty full weekend. It's been a pretty interesting weekend. A lot of really amazing stuff has happened. Of course, we had that landmark ruling by the Supreme Court that offers equal protection to the LGBTQ plus community and a few other things, which was, I really appreciated hearing that news this weekend. It was not hope. Hope isn't quite the word, but gratitude. Like I was grateful that is finally being recognized and that they are finally getting equal rights. Like this is something that's always kind of amazed me that there's been this pushback and this idea that equal rights for someone else means less rights for me. And that I've never quite understood that logic. So it'll be nice to have those conversations with people now that this is actually being talked about. And that's really what it comes down to me is that we're having these conversations, that we're talking about this stuff. And we have a rather interesting show today. So our second guest had to reschedule at last minute. So it's literally just me and Diane. And Diane is joining us from the Gold Coast of Australia. It's 7 o'clock over there right now, her time. So she's gotten up quite early to come and join us and be here with us. And of course, as you're seeing, my cam is being wild today. This is just going to be how it is. It looks like I've already tried to fix it several times, and it's just going with it. But Diane, she's a passionate and energetic speaker. She's just released the Master Mindset Mentor, which is for anyone who believes they deserve to manifest their own dreams. Over 40 years of experience performing, teaching, speaking, coaching, leading teams of people, she's helped countless clients shift from a limited human perspective to a master mindset by engaging them, empowering and energizing their lives and business to create extraordinary results. And I'd just like to bring her on, say hi for a minute, and we'll give her the stage. Morning, Diane.
Hi, Matthew. How are you?
Doing quite well, thank you. How are you this morning?
Oh, a bit chilly here, winter's day, but we're doing good. We have beautiful weather here. Stunning,
Oh,
stunning.
that whole hemisphere thing messes
Yeah,
me sometimes. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, Diane, I think I'm just going to give you the stage and just let you share what you've come to share, and we can jump in and talk about it afterwards. But for now, the stage is yours.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, well, for me, it all started when I was 2 and I wiggled my nappy off to the music on the radiogram. My parents sent me to ballet classes, which was an inspired decision because it set me on the path to my destiny. I spent the next 30 years in love with the entertainment industry, working as a dancer, actress, director, and choreographer on the stage and television until I scored the top job in Australia. Chosen as the assistant director and choreographer beside Las Vegas director Jerry Jackson, I worked on the first multi-million-dollar extravaganzas ever staged in the country. I was living the dream. You couldn't wipe the smile off my face. That was until I refused my producer's sexual advances and he sacked me for apparently being too fat. It was 1988, and though there were no laws back then to protect me, still I dared to take him to the Arbitration and Reconciliation Commission for unfair dismissal and sexual discrimination. No entertainer had ever taken this type of legal action against their producer in Australia before, but I had to make a stand, not just for me, but for what was right. Every national newspaper and news program ran the story. Dancer sacked for being too fat was one of the humiliating headlines emblazoned across the front pages. But I summoned up my dancer discipline and carried on. After a few days in court, I was eventually vindicated when the commissioner found there were no grounds for my dismissal and ordered my immediate reinstatement. I gratefully returned to work, ready to put it all behind me, but the producer sacked me again. I took him back to court, but out of concerns for my health, the commissioner didn't reinstate me a second time. I was devastated. I'd done nothing wrong, yet here I was being punished when the perpetrator was getting off scot-free. With the story once again splashed across the newspapers and on television, I went into hiding, humiliated and heartbroken as to how any of this had happened. I sank into a deep depression, consumed by a crippling fear of the future. I had no money, no purpose, no identity, and no one would employ me because of the media coverage. I'd become a whistleblower, an untouchable. At my lowest ebb, I lost all sense of myself, and suicide looked a good alternative. But a voice inside me said, dare to be more. Up until then, I'd been living my life from the outside in, firmly focused on the external world, on the doing and the having in life. It was time for me to focus on the internal world, to live from the inside out, to be more than I was demonstrating. Viktor Frankl wrote, when we are no longer able to change the situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. And that's what I had to do. So I shifted my limited human perspective and took responsibility for my life, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And that decision brought with it a life-changing epiphany. I discovered that my mindset was the master of my destiny, not the producer, not the commissioner, not the media. It all came down to me and what was going on up here. If I wanted to live a happier, healthier, and wealthier life, I needed to be a happier, healthier, and wealthier person first, from the inside. This realization set me on an epic quest for truth, and over the next 30 years, I developed what I call a master mindset. I replaced my old mindset of control and achievement with a new mindset of consciousness and alignment. I summoned up my faith in myself and dared to engage my inner resources and dream bigger dreams. I dared to challenge my conditioned thinking and empower myself with certainty. And I dared to energize my life by pressing on until those dreams or something better manifested. My master mindset method transformed me from a broke, suicidal young woman to owning an 8-figure business, being awarded an International Women's Day Leadership Award, and living the life of my dreams. Einstein said, everything is energy. Match the frequency of the reality you want, and you cannot help but get that reality. It can be no other way. This is not philosophy. This is physics. That means our reality always matches our energetic frequency. Challenging though it was, that meant my career catastrophe with the producer and the ensuing court cases had matched my energetic frequency at the time. It was true. I'd finally got the top job I'd always wanted, but I found fault with it in small ways every day. In short, I'd been living in paradise, but focusing on hell. I was the energetic conduit for the law of attraction, and now that I knew this unalterable truth, it liberated me with a new worldview. Everything is energy, which means I'm energy as well. I'm not some random body with a soul, with consciousness. I'm consciousness with a discernible presence called a body. I'm not some puny personality at odds with the world. I am one with the energy of the world. I'm the unique energetic expression of consciousness in movement, of mind with a capital M. You see, despite everything we've been conditioned to believe, an abundant, loving, successful, and healthy life is not about the doing and the having. It's about being the fullest expression of who we are, of consciousness. When we shift our attention away from the personality me to the universal I am and come from being, the doing and the having naturally unfold in perfect alignment. Contrary to popular opinion, being comes before doing and having. We must first be more, then we can do more of what matters, and finally have more of what counts. Over the years, I mapped out my master mindset method into 3 distinct steps. The first is to engage our inner resources and be more than ever before. Meditating and connecting with the still small voice within is critical to developing a new empowered state of being. We must delete our past and design a destiny by accepting that there are only ever 2 choices in life, those motivated by fear and those motivated by faith. Faith in who we truly are, that we are indeed consciousness with a body. When we engage with our inner resources, we consciously connect with our intuition, our creativity, and our inspiration. We create rather than criticize. When we engage with our inner resources, we take responsibility for our happiness and suffering. We change rather than blame. And when we engage our inner resources, we raise our energetic frequency and our world reflects the results. The second step in the master mindset method is to challenge our conditioned thinking, ignore our past limitations, and empower ourselves with certainty. This is where we do more of what matters. It's not about being busy, it's about being productive. Here we dive deep into our life philosophy, our thoughts and values, beliefs, actions and habits, and toss out any that don't serve us. And as we enlighten ourselves of our past, we begin to appreciate the 5 facets of our being. Like a De Beers jeweler, we polish our physical, emotional, mental, financial, and spiritual facets until they gleam, which brings integrity to our life. We value our health over our addictions because we know that fear is the cause of distress, discomfort, or disease. That, like everything else, illness is an energy and it manifests because of our resistance to truth. Having aligned even more with a higher resonance of consciousness, we now have the clarity to set our intentions, dreams, vision, goals, and uncover our purpose for being in this lifetime. When we empower ourselves with certainty using this process, we develop a laser focus on the brighter future we desire most. Though we live in the present, we have the skills and strategies to plan, prepare, and pivot if necessary to reap our rich future harvest. Without doubt, we know that where our focus goes, our energy flows, and results will surely follow. Now comes step 3. This is where we energize our life and business until our big dreams or something better manifests. This is where all the being and doing combines into the having more of what counts. We elevate our energetic physiology with the energies of passion, perseverance, patience, and personal power. We replace poverty consciousness with prosperity consciousness because we no longer see the source of abundance outside of ourselves. Humbled by our expanding success and fulfillment, we resonate with more gratitude and service. Our journey from the ego's seduction of separateness to being fully self-realized is well underway. We resonate with the 2 powerful energies of faith and trust, knowing that when we align with consciousness, with our being, life holds nothing from us. We consciously master our destiny and we manifest the life we desire most with elegance and grace. For the past 3 decades, I've taught the Master Mindset method to countless clients who've gone on to create extraordinary lives and businesses for themselves. It works because it's a universal law of physics. The law never discriminates. It's us who discriminate. We must use the law wisely, master our mindset, align with consciousness, and resonate at the highest frequency. Only then will we live the life we desire most. I believe that everyone deserves to manifest their dreams, to turn chaos into clarity, poverty into prosperity. And that's why I'm on a mission to shift one mind at a time, one business at a time, to a master mindset. So when you're next lying awake at 3 a.m, wondering why you're not achieving your goals or worrying over money, stop, breathe, and shift your perspective with this simple statement. I am consciousness with a body. I dare to be more. I dare to do more of what matters, and I dare to have more of what counts because I am more than I can ever imagine. 15 years after my career trauma, I was coaching and counselling women who wanted to return to the workforce. A woman in one of my workshops recognised me from all those years before. She'd been studying law back then, and she told how my court cases had been instrumental in changing the industrial relations laws in Australia. I had no idea. I was thrilled because my stand had made a difference. The laws had radically changed, and so too had my life. But most of all, what I learned is that those who dare will triumph in the end. And so can you with a master mindset. So that's a little short précis of how I got to where I am now.
Thank you, Diane. That was lovely. There's a lot of little things in there, a lot to unpack.
Yeah, there is. But that's the way I do things, Matthew. I always try to over-deliver on the promise and give people an opportunity to go, whoa, okay, let's go back and let's pull that all apart. Because when we tease things apart, that's when we actually get an opportunity to tap into our own inner wisdom and listen for what's really going on for ourselves, which is important.
Yeah, that process of self-discovery I found is incredibly important.
Yes.
So let's jump back to right after the second lawsuit when
Yep.
you're fired again and you're back at home. One of the things that stood out to me about that, and this is something that I've noticed in my own experience, is violence begets violence. And it doesn't matter if it's physical or emotional or energetic or whatever.
Yes.
It leads to violence. And something that I have really been playing with, specifically in the last like 6 months or so, is in a lot of ways, lawsuits, court battles, that feels violent to me.
Without a doubt, because there's so much anger and frustration. Yeah. Absolutely. And yes, at the time, it was all I had to be heard. And I think for a lot of people that's what it is, particularly now that we have the Me Too movement. That wasn't around way back then. I was the first Me Too case in Australia. So you feel when you come from the position of the ego, so when you're living your life unconsciously and you come from the position of the ego, from the limited human perspective, you actually are so conditioned to believe that you must be right, that you must stand up and fight for your cause, and that's it. And it doesn't matter. And so what happens is when you get two egos coming together, well, that will end up as a fight, as a battle, and end up in court or a war or in protests or in riots, because there's so much ego energy there. So at the time, everybody that's caught in that is totally unconscious of what is truly going on. And what's truly going on is that everything is energy. Match the frequency of the reality you want and you cannot help but get that reality. I know it sounds simple, but it is the way it is. And so I totally agree with you. It's all the violence. It's all underpinned by the ego, which is frustration and anger and all of those negatively charged emotions.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't feel there's anything wrong with that. Like going to court, if that's where that person is at, and I've been in those places too, where I have felt the need to sue and go into court. And like you said, the long-term effects, we don't really know what that's going to be. And there was some good that came out of it, right? Like it did actually end up having some positive effects in the long term. But what were some of the clues, like as you were kind of mulling over everything that happened and kind of putting your life back together, what were some of the clues that came to you that started putting this narrative together in your head?
There was one very important turning point for me. I was very fortunate because this whole situation, I have no doubt, was the catalyst in this lifetime that I had set up all the way along for me to wake up. So after everything fell apart, after I had consciously gone, right, there has to be something else for me to do now. I have to pull my socks up. I have to move on. I had no money at all. And I was an avid reader. And the only way I could get any books was to go to a second-hand bookstore. And one day, and that for me at the time was really quite confronting to go in and buy somebody's discarded books.
Mm.
And so the day I went to the secondhand bookstore, I stood outside and went, Anyway, it was really like, I write about this in my memoir that's coming out later this year. It was like somebody put their hand in the middle of my back and pushed me through the door. So I walked in and I'm looking around, sort of, nothing of interest grabbed my attention. But all of a sudden, a book fell off the shelf at my feet, fell off the shelf. And I bent down and I picked it up, and it was Shirley MacLaine's Out on a Limb. Now, Shirley MacLaine was my, musical theatre icon. I looked up to her. I just loved what she did. So I paid $2 and I ran home with this book, and I literally consumed it from the moment I got home till about 1 o'clock in the morning, when I couldn't keep reading it anymore. And I fell asleep. And I woke up with an absolute epiphany. It was like my whole life changed. It was one of those amazing moments, blinding light, celestial choirs, the whole thing was going on. And I went, oh my God, I know what is true. I know what's happening. I know how this all works. And it was an amazing experience. And from then on, that was it. The light, it's like the switch on the wall. The switch had been flicked and there was no going back, because once you have that conscious moment of awakening, when everything falls into place, you can never go back. You can never live the old way. It's done, because you're no longer ignorant. So it was like, whoa, here we go. And from that point forward, I just went on this, as I said, epic journey of searching and finding out what the truth is behind everything, and how I'm part of that integral tapestry. And that for me was very, very powerful. And that was it. And then from then on, that's when I really started to get heavily into meditation, connecting within, listening, developing a relationship with my inner wisdom, until, I'd have conscious conversations every day. And it makes life so much easier. It's just amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like once I've realized that avocados can be guacamole, who wants avocados anymore?
Yeah. And all the avocados are out there on the tree, happily doing their thing, and quite good. And that's good.
They're great.
We just like to take it and whip it up a bit and go, that's even yummier. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like that old saying, why have McDonald's when you can have steak? Like,
right.
It's the same thing. And that's what it is. And, you hear it over and over. I mean, everybody tends to think that philosophy and physics or science and spirituality are mutually exclusive, but they're not. They're one and the same thing. They're one and the same thing. It's just different semantics. It's just a different approach, looking at the same one universal truth. And I think we're starting to understand that more and more. So, it doesn't matter what term you put on it, whether you call it God or science or spirituality or, Allah, or it doesn't matter. And this is what we need to understand in the world now more than ever, is enough with the labels. We are all the same. It's not pitting one against the other. If we take the labels off everything, we wouldn't have all this carry on. Truly, we wouldn't. It's a bit like when I have my granddaughter here, and I'll say to her, everybody's saying, well, that's a flower and that's a butterfly and that's that. And I just say, that's a little piece of consciousness, and that's another piece of consciousness, and that's another piece of consciousness. And it's all the same. Look at the consciousness of the flower. Da, 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 da. So if we didn't label everything for our own convenience, and that's all it is, it's for our own personality convenience, we wouldn't have all of this. So, the whole black, white, female, male, gay, straight, it's all labels for the one thing. And we don't understand. We're missing the point so often, that it's not that we're different, it's that we're the same.
So is there a downside to that, to you, like to the labels? Like, is there, what is it that the labels are doing that maybe don't feel comfortable or don't feel helpful to you?
I think it's what motivates the labeling. As I said when I was talking about my journey, it's what motivates it. It's a little bit like, let me explain it this way. Let's say that you decide to go to the supermarket to buy a bag of oranges. You have two motivators that could motivate that action. One would be fear, which would be the voice in your head going, oh, you better go and get some oranges. It's winter. You could get the flu. So if you go and get some oranges, the vitamin C might help you. So you better go and have them. So even though you don't really want them, you better have them, right? That's a fear motivator, saying, well, you better have them because of, or something's going to happen bad if you don't. Or you have the other motivator, which is faith in yourself, which says, you know what, it's winter. You probably need a bit more vitamin C in your system at the moment. I can feel that that's happening. Grab some oranges while you're at the supermarket. And so you get the same outcome, but the motivator is different. And so it's not so much the labeling as such, but it's the motivation behind the labeling. So, if you're talking black and white, what's motivating that? And so we give it more labels and say racism, but let's go back, because people can say black or white and be motivated by faith and love. Just because you use black or white doesn't mean that you have a racist or fear-based motivator for it. So we need to use a bit of common sense as well as some compassion, and understand that it's about the motivations on things. And we're missing that. We become so absorbed in that, in the negatively charged energy, that we don't take a breath and stop and go, hang on, a bit of common sense, a bit of compassion, a bit of intelligence here wouldn't go astray. Because we'll never resolve anything if we keep provoking it. It's like, don't keep prodding the bear. If you keep prodding the bear, it's going to growl. And so it all ties into this. And, I've been on the planet now for well over 60 years, and I've seen quite a progression. And I was only saying the other day, in the 70s, when we were all in our, teenage and 20 years, et cetera, there was such hope and optimism. And sure, we were out there saying, let's stop the Vietnam War, but we actually felt as a generation, as baby boomers, that we literally could affect some positive change on the planet. And we did. We went out there and we had a wonderful time. We really did. And I feel sorry in some ways for the younger generation now, who are so angry and see that in many ways they think the only way they can affect change is through violence and aggression. And it's just not going to get the results they want. Not only that, it's going to create ill health in their bodies, because they're generating all that energy, all that distress, all that discomfort. And it will turn to disease. It's just the way it is. It's the way energy works. I mean, they proved that back in 1985, that our emotional nature and our thoughts literally influence the chemical messages in our peptides in our bodies. We've known that since 1985, and people still think that illness is random. It's not. It's not. We are responsible for our own health. And I think the sooner people start to realize all of those pieces of the puzzle, the sooner they'll go, wait a minute, I actually influence everything in my life here. And how do I want my life to be? And then once you say, this is how I want my life to be, you can actually then impact it accordingly to get that result.
So I guess the bigger question that comes in all of this, and kind of what I'm wondering and pointing to, where do you see this is going? Like, to me, um, you know, there's been a gradual progression, it seems, in human consciousness,
Yes.
but overall, the underlying condition of humanity doesn't seem to have changed that much in the
Mm,
last 10,000 years or so. You know?
mm,
That we still learn from violence. We still use violence and to get our way, to be
mm.
protected. We still fall into tribalism. We still fall into nepotism, into corruption and cronyism. Um, and in some ways, like, all of these things are learning opportunities too.
Mm.
You know,
Yes.
like, I don't judge any of them. I don't say any of them are bad or wrong or evil. Like, I tend to fall into the camp of all things work towards good to for those who love, or just all things work towards good eventually is maybe even a more encompassing way to say it. So while I invite people into this mindset, um, it's not something that I feel the need to particularly promote or like be really proactive about. And that's kind of changed in the last like year or so. It feels like there is a bit more of that faith motivation that you're talking about in being proactive, and it's part of what I'm here doing this for. But I guess the bigger picture is so like, do you have any sense or like any vision of where this is ultimately going?
From my perspective, I see everything as part of the evolution of human consciousness. I see that whatever is going on, each and every one of us has an opportunity to shift our perspective and find the greater good. For a lot of people, that's very, very challenging. And, I understand that, and I don't always get it by any means. Like, I have my pet issues, like animal cruelty. I still find that one a tough one to actually go, okay, they're doing the best they can at the time with the information they have. And I remind myself of that. That's not to say I would stand by and allow that to happen. I would definitely run in, and I would stop that at all cost if I saw it. But interestingly enough, those events don't happen in my life because I don't bring them in. And I think that what we're seeing on the planet is very much what we saw in the 1980s with the New Age movement. We have another resurgence now. I think that it's very cyclical. And I believe that once again, we are in the situation like we were with, back in the 1960s with the the situations and the riots in America then, and we've got riots now across the world, all based on the race card. And we're seeing all of this build. We've had this COVID situation, which has locked people down, which makes them quite uncomfortable. And I think it's a little bit like we're again at a shift of the human consciousness. We have a choice to either see it with faith or with fear. That's really important. I think that as each of us, as the microcosm, we impact the macrocosm every moment of every day. And the moment we understand that we have that sort of energetic impact is the moment that real change can be instigated. I think at the moment it's a little bit like if you have a boil and that boil gets angrier and angrier and angrier, and it builds and builds and builds under the skin till it's really red, and then it erupts. And I think what we're seeing is the eruption or the lancing of the boil at the moment. And I'm praying and meditating and committed to that we will clean that mess up, and it will heal, and it will reveal its perfect form after the event. That requires each of us to have that type of perspective. and to go, right, yes, we can see this is happening. Yes, we're working towards having conversations and having change and doing all of those things. But everybody needs to have that one goal, that one intention of peace. Let's go for peace here, peace within the individual, within the home, within the community, within the society, and that we get over this win-lose situation and mindset, that really the only place to be is to be in a place of peace of mind, not in that mindset of competition. So there's all these subtle distinctions that we need to be looking at. And I agree. I think that the in many ways, the silent majority who is more aware of this conscious journey needs to stand up now, needs to stand up and speak. And that's why I've taken my course digitally online now, rather than doing just live workshops, is that so that it can reach more people, so that if people are curious about how do they make that shift from a limited human perspective, how do they do that? Well, the course is there that they can go through it, and then they will glean out of that course what they're looking for, and then that multiplies and they can share that out with the world. And I think it is time for those of us who have had an understanding of this and know this on a deep level, it's time for us to stand up and be counted and to go, right, here we are, we're going to put our 2 cents worth in, we're going to give of ourselves for the greater good, because we know that we do have impact. And even if it's only little, that's impact. And I think we need to start we need to shift that perspective of saying, oh, what does it matter? Because we do matter. We all have impact. We all have energy. And while we're here, we need to be making the most of who we are.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a vision that I had about a month ago now, maybe a month and a half. I don't really keep track of time, so not too terribly long ago. Um, and it was about what we're talking about now. And like I kind of saw this existence as it exists inside a funnel. And at the very bottom of the funnel is just pure consciousness, ourself, our awareness, love, whatever you want. And that's where we're born. That's where I was born, like in this state of just pure consciousness. And then as I grew up and started taking on, observations and lessons and things that my parents told me and society told me, my friends told me, um, this some part of my awareness, the ego, the mind, whatever, it starts spinning up. And the faster it goes, the higher it gets up the funnel and the further away from consciousness that it exists. And it's like now I've experienced being spun up to the very top of the funnel at society, that materialistic society where everything is mostly fear-based. All the laws that are created have been created out of fear and logic and reason, and it's and I feel like that comes naturally with the separation from that deeper consciousness, right? Like from
Yes.
the bottom of the funnel. And so, we were talking about this briefly before we started the show, that in a lot of ways, technology is like the mind trying to get back what it lost from the consciousness.
Yes.
The cell phones being, the ability to communicate through, mind or directly soul to soul, right? Like telepathy, for lack of a better word. And then it's things like this, like your program and One Day, and like they may not bring someone all the way back down the funnel, but they slow them down, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And as they slow down, they start coming into contact with things that are more conscious and more aware and more loving, and that slows them down even more.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
eventually, like they hit something that just stops them, full stop, and they just drop, right?
Yeah.
Um, And so like I have been feeling a call to this, and I really appreciate like you putting yourself out there in this call to like kind of hit the brakes a little bit and get people to slow down and drop down the funnel. Um, but there's been, and this has only been in the last couple of days. There's been this question. It's not curiosity. It's not like I need to know it. It's nothing mental at all, but it's just this question that keeps coming up that I've been kind of living of what's next. Like as more and more people come into this awareness and more people drop down this funnel back into consciousness. And again, coming back to the conversation we had before before we went live about the cruise ship, like, you know, we're all the conscious people getting on the cruise ship, right? So like as we all come together and we kind of step out of our own little worlds and we start forming this group of consciousness, where do we go? Like what do we play with that? Like what's next with that?
I'm going to explain it this way. Each of us already is consciousness, the unique expression of consciousness in movement. That is all that is going on. That is the only thing that is going on. We have been conditioned to have labels and to wear the third dimensional set of glasses. So we have a pair of glasses on which only sees the third dimensional reality. Mm-hmm. However, we all live in fourth dimensional consciousness, which is the consciousness of mind with a capital M. And we all run around going, I can't see very well, my glasses are a bit dirty. And we take the glasses off and we try to clean them, then we still put them back on. And so we're still looking through the third dimensional glasses and we can't see the beauty of what truly is the landscape, which is fourth dimensional reality. And so it's not what's going to happen next and that we group or anything like that. It's that we are already there. From a religious point of view, using a religious term, we are already sitting in the kingdom of heaven, except our eyes are all squinched up and we can't see it. So we get inklings of it. We feel it. We sense it. We really sense the energy of it when we're in gratitude. We can even imagine it. And that's because we're already there. It's just that what we need to do is to take the damn glasses off and throw them away. And for those of us who are on a conscious journey, we do that. We take them off and we go, oh, no, I'm not quite ready yet. And then we take them up. Oh, no. And then one day we'll throw them away, go, oh, damn, no, I better go and get them again. Because it's so enlightening. And yet we all have this longing. Each human being has a longing to go home. Everybody has it. It works deep in our gut and we want to go home. And that's what that is, because we are already home. We just can't see it. And so I think what's happening on the planet now is this longing to go home has come up and up and up. And as you said, through your funnel analogy, it's coming up and up and up through fear, rather than, yes, I want to go home, but where's home? And we need to go deeper down into ourselves, into our consciousness, into our soul, into our spirit, whatever word works for you. That's where we need to go, not up here in all the chaos, but into here in all the clarity. And that's why we're getting this at the moment on the planet. Boom, 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 boom. And that's why for those of us on a conscious journey, one of our greatest gifts we can give is peace, is choosing for peace. Choose for peace, not panic. Choose for faith, not fear. choose for compassion, not competition. And so the more people who do that on a moment by moment basis, even if it's just in their homes, there's no television camera, there's nobody filming you on your phone, you are creating the energy of peace, and it has a ripple effect because we already live in that consciousness, except we just haven't taken the glasses off yet, but we feel it. And we need to go more with that feeling, that energetic feeling of, yes, that's right. And you know what? People could say, I look at life through rose-colored glasses and I'm crazy. And I would say, yes, but is the way you look at life serving you? Is the way you look at life making you feel happy and loved and loving and valuable? Are you generating the results you desire most? Because if you're not, and if I am, maybe it might be worth considering, what am I doing? Who am I being that could possibly assist you in you having the reality that you desire most?
Absolutely. Yeah, and that brings up a really important aspect of this to me, which is I don't know all this stuff. Like, this is everything that I'm talking about here, everything that I'm sharing, it comes from my experience, right? Um, and so I just would like to take a second and encourage anyone and everyone who's listening. You don't have to believe us.
No.
It's not about that. But go try it.
Yeah,
Try it on a
absolutely.
little bit, you know?
And
Um,
as I say to people, all I ever am is a tinkling bell. That's all I am, is a tinkling bell. If anything I say gives you a little bit of a little wake up or a little aha moment, that's not me. That's me being the facilitator of your inner wisdom. And that's why I'm a great believer and supporter and advocate for meditation. Because as you meditate, as you go within, you find your own inner wisdom, and that's who you listen to. That's where you are to be motivated from, not from somebody else, but from within, because it's only in solitude, in the silence of solitude, can we ever find true wisdom. And so my role isn't to go out there and to change people, because that would be ridiculous. The only person who can change anybody is themselves. But if the bells can go off, I've done my job, because it means the energy's connected, because we're all ready to plug into each other. We come, cable ready, basically. And so if that happens and you get that buzz, you go, right, there's something going on there. I'm going to now go on my own journey, my own, quest to find out what is going on. What is that I feel? And then bingo, off you go. It's wonderful. It's exciting.
Yeah, that's actually the part about it that I really love the most, is like every single person has their own journey and their own experience, and they learn some unique thing that like otherwise who would have known that? Like unless you went through that experience
Yes.
and came out the other side.
Yep.
That's actually one of my all-time favorite parts about all this, is like just having these conversations and the analogies that other people come up with, and like the little wisdom that come out of their own experience that I never would have gotten there. Like that's not where I'm at. But like having a chance to talk with you, it's like, oh, okay, I might borrow that for next time.
And it just gives you, and that's what it's all about. It's about shifting human perspective. Mm-hmm. Every time we make that little shift and go, oh, that's interesting, hadn't thought of it that way, means that, slowly but surely we're chipping away at all that conditioned thinking and all those past limitations that probably don't serve us. So if they don't serve us, it really is time to toss them out, really is, rather than hanging on to them. We're not here long enough to hang on to them. Trust me, like, boom, it's gone. Then we're back again for the next one, and we've forgotten the one before, and we start all over again. Like, damn. So.
And so like that actually feels like a really lovely point to close on, and just like kind of like bringing this all back to the beginning of your story. Um, I'm wondering, like in the beginning of my journey, my first realization was just how miserable I was.
Mm.
And it has been the pain that has been the motivation to keep going down this path.
Ah, right. Mm.
And so I wonder if you just talk a little bit about what your motivations have been.
I would say at that time, absolutely, I had hit the bottom of the barrel in life. There was, and when we hit the bottom of the barrel in life, that's sometimes the best place to be,
Mm-hmm.
because we are so undefended. We are in such a place of disarray, and we are, as I say, undefended against our good. We are just yield. We're just ready to give it all away. And I was at that place, and I had no strength to haul myself back up the sides of life. And at that point, when I was ready to just sever all ties, was when I'd given up control. And so I no longer tried to control my life, control people in it, or control situations. And that's when our consciousness breaks through. And that's when we can get the epiphanies. That's when we can get the messages. That's when we can get the aha moments, because we are in a space of total surrender. I'm done. I can't do it anymore. I'm over it. Bingo. And then all this truth floods in. And so for many people, I discovered as I then went on my journey to look at how this all comes together, many people who actually have life-changing epiphanies and moments hit that rock bottom. And it's because many times their egos are so strong and so powerful that they have to shatter them. They have to be shattered in order to just let go. And so we need to listen, look for the omens, let go, and lean in to life. And that's what happened to me. I was absolutely at my wit's end. And when I finally gave up fighting with myself and with everything else, that's when everything changed. It got a lot easier then, because I actually had that epiphany moment. And I went, whoa, so that's what's been going on. And I often say to people, I liken it to with children. When we have children and our children are growing, they have their shoes. And then as they grow, their shoes get too tight for them. So we don't rouse at our children and say, very bad, your feet are growing, very bad, keep them in those shoes. And so what happens is our consciousness stretches and expands and groans and wants to break free of the life that we have imposed on ourselves. And that's what happened to me. During that time at the casino, for me, my consciousness was groaning and expanding and wanting to be done with all of that, done with the fighting and the hostility and all of that control and everything else. And then it couldn't expand enough until my whole life shattered. And then once my life shattered, my consciousness exploded and went, right, now we're on our life's journey. Now you're going to start being the person you incarnated to be in this lifetime. And then when I was struck by that, I went, right, I'm ready now. Let's do this.
Let's go.
And ever since, that's been my mission. It's been my mission. I'm here. That is my purpose. I am here, and I am staying here until I fulfill it. I'm not going anywhere. I've got at least another 30 to 40 behind me. So I will start to do my life's work now. Really now is, I think, I'm ready. And that, 60 over 60 human years. But then there is no such thing as time. Time is just a construct. And so we're eternal consciousness, forever moving and expanding. So, you can't, time, as you said before, it doesn't exist. Again, it's just a linear construction so that we can try and work things out better. Makes no sense at all.
The only way it makes sense to me is recognizing that the mind, the little mind, this one, needs it. Like it needs that limitation.
Yes, and it is a limitation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that, like, to me, that just comes as part and parcel with this physical body. Like, it's just.
Yes, with this incarnation. Yeah, correct.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but like, yeah, when that moment of surrender, like, I totally get that, and I really appreciate it. And I guess the question to end on to everyone else out there watching is, are you done fighting?
Yeah.
If you are, we're here.
Yeah. If you want peace. Yeah.
Exactly.
Mm.
I finally realized that there's nothing worth fighting for and there's nothing to defend.
Mm. Correct. The moment we're undefended against our good is the moment we make change.
Exactly. Diane, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. I love having chats, and I love being able to share my story and share my experience. And I hope that it serves someone somewhere watching this, and that they will go, there's some things in there that tweaked my interest. So yes, it's been wonderful, Matthew, and all the best with your vision and mission for one day. I think it's fabulous.
Thank you very much. If you wouldn't mind hanging out for just a few minutes, I've got a couple of housekeeping things for you backstage.
Yep.
But in the meantime, I just want to say thank you to everyone who's watching. And if you would like to participate or join us, you are welcome to go to onedaymvmt.org. You can sign up to volunteer, to contribute, to share here on the virtual stage. And we would love to have you. Like, we would love to hear your voice. We would love to hear your experience and what brought you to the great realization that you are. And that brings us to our vision, which is humanity rising in a connected world, with each person's unique contributions being valued and magnified through a higher level of collaboration, producing unprecedented new realms of possibility. Unprecedented new realms of new possibility. Like, to me, that is the power of surrender. Like, when I finally let go, when I finally gave up the fight, and it sounds like with Diane, it was a very similar thing, that was when that greater consciousness, which, some can call it imagination, some can call it the Holy Spirit, some can call it love. It doesn't really matter to me. I call it intuition. And it's from that inspiration that life has just become joy and ease and abundance, and it's a choice. It's a choice to surrender, and it's one that I have to make every single moment of every single day. As soon as I start getting back into the fear, as soon as I start recognizing that I'm making fear-based decisions, actually, let me rephrase that. I recognize that I'm making fear-based decisions because my life starts getting hard again. But as long as I'm trusting that intuition, as long as I'm letting that deeper knowing guide me, then nothing stands in my way. There is no problem. There is nothing wrong. Everything is wonderful and joyful and abundant. And it's such a beautiful thing. So guys, thank you once again for joining us. It has been an absolute pleasure. We will be back, or at least I will be back Thursday for another episode. Abram will not be back until next Tuesday. But until then, aloha.